Aloha mai kākou from Waimea on the island of Hawaii. You're listening to Hawai'i Radio Hour. I'm Kobiakamu Moser, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Naka Nathaniel.
Aloha mai kākou. We think we're going to make you hungry on today's show. We hope that maybe you're in the kitchen getting ready for tonight's Sunday supper.
Why are we going to be making you hungry, you might ask? First, we have a story from Chelsey Dickson, who cooked in one of the most amazing kitchens in the world, the deck of the long-distance voyaging canoe, Makali'i.
We'll also hear Ike Kupuna about farming on Hawai'i Island from Uncle Earl Yamamoto.
And we will finish with some slack-keyed jams to get you ready to eat when the show is pow.
News, Ike Kupuna, mele, mo'olelo, and more.
All on today's episode of Hawai'i Radio Hour from Kahilu.
Aloha from Nani Waimea. I'm Naka Nathaniel. I'm here with my co-host, Kobiakamu Moser.
We are so glad to have you listening to us today. We hope you're doing something pleasant like cruising back from the beach or maybe a grad party. Or maybe you're in the kitchen getting ready for Sunday dinner.
I like that. Someone's cooking and listening to our show. I'd love that idea. Actually, that's making me again kind of hungry. Colby, what's for dinner after the show?
Well, you're going to have to ask my husband that because I'm not ashamed to admit that he does about 99.99% of the cooking in our household. Honestly, he loves cooking, so I'm not about to take his joy away.
Actually, something that I wanted to ask you about. I was curious if working on eating on our roots, kind of changed the way that you cooked.
My husband would say not. But it really did change the way that I consumed from going to the restaurant or buying food, going to the grocery store and looking at where the food has actually come from. And sometimes shopping local isn't even that much more than buying from the continent. Sometimes it's actually cheaper and definitely fresher and more beautiful and tastier.
That's right. I mean, it's something when you actually know who your farmer is,
Absolutely.
Right? I love that. So you don't have a go-to dish?
I make a mean red pasta with ground beef and mac and cheese is my specialty. That's all my girls ask for anyway. But you, Chef Naka Nathaniel, I've had some pretty amazing dinners.
Yeah, well, I love cooking. Something that watched my dad, who learned how to cook from his vovo and everyone else down in Hilo. Like, they were always cooking. And I just love that idea of, bringing everyone together around and, going through all the big cookbooks and just like bring everyone together at the table. That's what my dad loved to do the most was,
I love that.
He would cook like this huge meal, a lot of like, Hawaiian Chinese kind of stuff, the fried wontons, the cow yuke, all that sort of good kind of stuff. And so when I saw him doing it, and then I was like, okay, so this is how you do this. And he would teach us the way to make lanapua or sweetbread, whatever it happened to be. And so when I got a chance then to go work on a cooking show, it's like, okay, I already have my basics. Let me kick it up a notch by taking on these different ingredients. And so it's always been kind of fun. Yeah.
Well, now I'm inspired to learn how to cook.
Well, that's why I need to do another season of Eating Our Roots.
Exactly. And that's coming.
We hope that if you aren't hungry now, that you will be by the end of the show, because our mo'olelo and Ike Kupuna segments are devoted to food. I hope maybe you'll have a little poo-poo or a little favorite beverage nearby as we help you get to dinner time.
Mahalo for listening to Hawai'i Radio Hour. We'll be back after this quick message.
The Hawai'i Radio Hour has been made possible with the incredibly generous kāko'o of the Richard Smart Fund.
The Richard Smart Fund supports healthcare, education, and charities in the Waimea area on Hawai'i Island.
To learn more, please visit hawaiicommunityfoundation.org. Coming up in the show, our Ike Kupuna segment with Uncle Earl Yamamoto.
When you plant something, it's like raising a family, right? You gotta nurture it. You put it in the ground, you gotta feed it, you gotta give it water, you gotta take off all the competition, the weeds.
Aloha mai kākou, welcome back to Hawai'i Radio Hour.
Hawaii has some of the best food growing conditions on the planet, yet it's well known that we import most of what we eat.
Yep, we've all heard the statistics. About 85 to 90% of the food consumed in Hawaii is imported and only 10 to 15% is grown locally.
While we lament how we fell into such a precarious place, there are people here in Hawaii who have found ways to feed ourselves in ways that are healthy, affordable, and delicious.
Today, we want to feature the mo'olelo of Chelsey Dickson. She shared her story on stage at Kahilu not long ago.
Chelsey was not a particularly eager storyteller. She says she's more of a behind-the-scenes person.
That's right. However, she put her reservations about public speaking aside and shared this mo'olelo about ingenuity, innovation, and intrepidness.
Here in front of a live audience at Kahilu is Chelsey Dickson.
I was born and raised in Waimea. It's a little different growing up than anywhere else. It gets cold here. Waimea is known for a specific type of rain that blows sideways. It stings and makes your face numb. But it never bothered us kids playing outside. When I was 10, I remember being with my dad at night in the old Parker Ranch Quonset hut. The wind blowing, in the rain coming in sideways, and all the fathers of us kids working after work, building a canoe. Those guys, they were called the cowboy crew. They were Waimea cowboys building a Hawaiian voyaging canoe, Makali'i, on Parker Ranch land. And during those cold, dark nights, I witnessed dedication and kuleana to our people and our culture. The birth of Makali'i was a huge moment for our community and our families. My dad was a part of that crew, and he doesn't have any sons that I know about. So I was training as his daughter and his son since birth. He taught me how to be tough, how to handle the weather when it comes in sideways. So when Makali'i was ready, it was time to prepare for the voyage. One day, as a 10-year-old girl, I come home from school and I get to the front door of our house, and there's truckloads of Spam and Hilo soda crackers and Saimin up the walls. And I peek my head in, and I was like, "Whoa, Tat, who's coming for dinner?" And he laughed and he said, "The halau. But they're not coming to eat, they're coming to pack." And my dad was the quartermaster of the maiden voyage of Makali'i. He planned all the meals for 30-day voyage. He hustled up donations and got everything he needed to survive on a Pacific Ocean voyage crossing to Tahiti for the first time. Being the cook and quartermaster required a lot of energy, creativity, and planning to feed 15 people. This Waimea cowboy crew wasn't little. And cooking meals on a 2-burner stove with no shelter in the middle of the open ocean, with no refrigeration, no sink, no countertop, all the things that you have in your kitchen at home didn't exist. And it's not easy. He designed a specific galley box to put on the deck to make it all work. So I get into the living room, right, and I squeeze my way between the boxes, and he tells me, "Grab the bucket, put 5 scoops of rice inside, and then 10 eggs, and then 5 more scoops of rice, and then 10 more eggs, and then keep going until it's to the top, and then weigh it and label it with this blue tape." And he throws me the tape and the Sharpie, and he's like, "Okay, that's breakfast for 5 days, and eggs that won't catch cracks when we're catching cracks." What you think? Pretty good, huh? That cowboy crew made it to Tahiti and back. Never had a cracked egg, but maybe a few extra pounds from eating well. There have been many special voyages and significant voyages over the past 30 years of Makali'i since then, and others that my dad have helped provision food and meals. And I have been lucky enough to be by his side each time, packing those day boxes. A most recent voyage to Mokumanamana, Hanauna Ola, meaning sustaining generations through voyaging, was a voyage that I had an honor to be a crew member on. Our course was set by Shorty Bertelman to sail to Mokumanamana. He trained intensively with crew, especially Pualani Maialua Lincoln, to navigate to this protected area of this marine national monument. Papahanaumokuakea. Getting there required major navigational skills, critical partnerships with cultural experts like the Kawananakoa Foundation, NOAA, OHA, and it required us crew to go through a very strict protocol. Entering into that realm and that space of our kupuna islands, entering into the po. We're very special, Makali'i. We have 2 po navigators, Shorty Bertelman and Chad Paishan. And after returning from Malamahonua worldwide voyage aboard Hokulea, which was a 3-year voyage around the world to share the message of how to care for the earth, Chad came back to our island and to our community to ask a simple question for this next voyage. If our kupuna were able to voyage and sustain themselves, then is it possible for us now to provision 1 canoe for 1 voyage, for this voyage? And there was only one answer for him, yes. I mean, come on, Saloon Pilot, Crackers, and Simon needed a break. The Spam went low sodium. Nobody wants to eat that. And the answer was yes. We are totally capable. But we all knew it was going to be a huge undertaking for our crew and our community, and a major, major shift in mindset and lifestyles. I was like, Dad, you can't buy Spam. We're not going to take that. And then he's like, oh, well, we'll just pack Vienna sausage and rice on the side just in case. I remember my dad's face when I turned to him and said, no Spam. Like, no, we're not going to take it. And his green eyes almost turned white. For this kind of provisioning to work, we didn't just need to pack and plan for donations. It was going to be 3 years of preparation getting everyone involved. We needed to get certified in master food preserver class, learning different techniques of how to preserve food, dehydrating, freeze drying, pickling. We needed to tune in with the seasons and how things grew and how long it took to harvest something. Keala, Kahuanui, and Chad really got everyone on board with this huge undertaking. Chad had made the challenge, and through the process of over 3 years, it taught our community that we can feed ourselves. We can provision our ohana at home. We can provision a canoe. So I'm in my 30s, right? I come home from school where I work now. I'm not going to school. But my dad has truckloads of tomatoes in the living room. And I'm thinking, thank goodness it's not Spam and rice. But shoots, this is going to be a lot of work. He tells me, oh, Auntie Tony and Uncle Alex grew these tomatoes from their homestead farm. This is a gift for the voyage. And there was overwhelming support and abundance from the community when representatives from Hilo and Kona and Kohala and Hamakua, the whole island, came together. We spent hours over a pot stirring those beautiful purple heirloom tomatoes into a sweet ketchup that everyone loved, especially Auntie Patty Ann. She was so happy about it. Every gathering after she first tasted it, I can still hear her voice saying, bring the ketchup. That voyage built on the voyaging legacy and our community and brought us closer to the sources of life and our food. For the first time in over 100 years or more, the voyaging canoe Makali'i, our traditional voyaging canoe, was successfully navigated and arrived at our kupuna islands. And we were completely provisioned from our island. Every single meal. It nourished our minds, our bodies, and our spirits in a whole different way. We all felt the weather in a different way. We all felt the connection to the universe. It was multidimensional. It super boosted the mana that was around us. And it was also in the food. Our vibration was heightened by the chants and protocols, and we were in tune with our environment. We all considered the food spiritual, from the planting to the consumption. We were connected, and we understood how we would be able to sustain generations through voyaging. On the island of Mokumanamana, I sat looking out towards the horizon. We all had our own panana to be at. And a bird came down and sat next to me. I sat there, admiring it for a while, observing it in its place on that island. And I asked it, "You're all the way out here in the middle of the ocean, and there's so many of you on this tiny island. Where does all your food come from? There's no reef. There's hardly any place for you to land or nest." And then it looks at me, it gets up, it hops away for a few feet in the opposite direction, kind of like telling me to follow it. And it leads me up this very steep part of the island. I follow it. I follow this bird and I get to the other side. And there's a very steep cliff. I look over and it looks at me and it flies down, swoops down, makes a circle, and comes back up. And I look to where it circled, and I see all these tiny little fish in the water. Silver sparkles of little fish, a school of fish. It had showed me where its food source was and where it came from, in that tiny little protected area on that side of the island. And I was like, "Oh, I know where my food comes from too." That voyage really transformed all of us into knowing where our food comes from and to have the ono for it. And that bird on that island led me to a much bigger one. Fast forward to a voyage across the sky. We're on an airplane this time, not a canoe. And I'm invited by Nakalaiwa'a, Makali'i crew, to represent Hawaii and share our indigenous foods on the other side of the planet. We receive very generous support from a board member, Kaimana Bakarsi, crew member and chef from Kamehameha Schools, 2 mahi'ai from Kona, Kamuela and Keahi, who work very closely with Kalo and have built an amazing network of cultural practitioners that ku'i'ai. Keala Kohuenui, who is currently very active in keeping that dream alive, and a quartermaster aboard Makali'i. To prepare for this trip and to contribute to our cultural exchange and indigenous dinner, I start looking around for resources. I don't have much time to prepare. Auntie Berta has too many mangoes, so I go pick them up from her, dehydrate them, and seal them up for the trip. The ahi in Kauaihai is biting, so I take dry fish. We make inamona and Dad's special salt seasoning. Keala freeze dries luau, and Kamuela and Keahi pack haloa in their suitcase, and a papa and a pohaku, and we are going to Italy. We land, and Italy is gorgeous. The coffee, the wine, the pizza. Buongiorno. Oh my gosh, what happened to my palate? My mind is blowing at how good this $5 pasta tastes on the side of the street. But refocus, Chelsey. We're there for Terra Madre and to connect with the International Slow Food Network. Terra Madre is a global network and a conference by Slow Food that promotes sustainable and ethical food production. I learned there that Carlo Petrini, an Italian activist, founded Slow Food, Terra Madre, 30 years prior to us being there. About the same time Makali'i was born. 3,000 delegates attended this conference and gathered for this opening speech. Our crew wore our kihei. We stood around the center of the stage in an old industrial park with large metal structures and large trees. Around us were massive white tents, vendor booths, outdoor food trucks, small farm product market, where everyone knew exactly where their food came from. In his opening speech, Carlos spoke about emotional intelligence, political work, biodiversity, cultural representation, awareness, and stories, all about food. He says, "We are custodians. We must take on the responsibility and be stronger than ever, especially now." So we had done the voyage to Mokumanamana, and it was an example to the rest of the world what was possible. As a crew, we navigated through the city. We found ourselves in a small restaurant that had opened its doors to host the International Indigenous Dinner and a cultural exchange. We took all the food that we brought and set it up in the kitchen. Out by the tables, the sound of a steady, rhythmic pounding captured everyone's attention. Keahi and Kamuela attracted the crowd when they were kui. They had everyone's attention. The representatives from Japan, Taiwan, Saudi Arabia, Mexico, Okinawa, Philippines, Africa, Turtle Islands, they were all in awe of this practice and the way we feed our people. In the kitchen, Keala rehydrated the freeze-dried luau and made a huge pot of squid luau. The rest of us made dried ahi poke with inamona and limu kohu, and we served it to our fellow humans. The conference lasted several days, and it included workshops, tastings, and meetings. The market had endless aisles of cheeses and wines from around the world and olive oil from various regions. And every single farmer that produced something was slow food certified. They were doing it for hundreds of years, using the same techniques. They were there to share their story and to perpetuate their culture and their way of life, just like us. But oh my goodness, the challenges we all face. In the meetings, there was time to consider our adversity, our trials, our tribulations, and learn how to strengthen each other and build capacity and support, all while being surrounded by food. So we returned home, bellies full, suitcases filled with balsamic vinegar and oil and pasta. We all tasted and experienced so much. Now we know what grows worldwide and what tastes worldwide. It's easy to import when we need, but we also came back with an understanding of the importance of food sovereignty. As a crew and as a family, we think about what we can do, what we can grow, or what we can make. My dad got some chickens. We have fruit trees. We pick our luau and lettuce from the yard, and we maintain that mindset. He still has a can of Spam in the back of the pantry, but it's expired, and we haven't needed to eat it yet. But food sovereignty is provisioning the canoe. It's sharing that with the world, and it's a reflection of our ono, a reflection of the seasons. It starts at home with a mindset, growing what you eat, knowing that healthy food comes from the land, and it comes from the efforts of the people that grow it and prepare it. It comes from the ike and the practices that are involved in cultivating and keeping our environment healthy. It's our source of life, and when we are all in it together, on course, oya. That's it. I'm Chelsey Dickson, and I'm from Waimea.
What an amazing story. We are so grateful for Chelsey for sharing her mo'olelo.
I think her mo'olelo could inspire others to join in the efforts to make Hawaii the breadbasket of the Pacific. Chelsey responded to a vision and made something significant happen. She fed a canoe crew with food exclusively raised on Hawaii Island, and then she fed people from all over the world in Italy. Such an amazing story. We are so grateful that she shared it with folks from her hometown.
Next up in the show, grab your pupu and get ready to listen to Ike Kupuna from a third-generation Waimea farmer.
So World War II happened, and they wanted to, the Navy and the Army needed vegetables, fresh vegetables. So Parker Ranch actually leased out the lands for free.
We'll be right back after a short break. You're listening to the Hawai'i Radio Hour. Welcome back to the Hawai'i Radio Hour. Colby, can you guess one of the things I hate to buy at the grocery store?
Let's see. Anything at full price?
I need my Makali'i discount. No, green onions. I hate buying green onions.
Why is that?
It's leftover from my dad. When he cooked with green onions, he'd always replant the roots, near the little white parts. And I'm happy to say that I haven't had to buy green onions for a while. We have an ample supply out in the yard.
I hear you. I do the same. And we are not doing our part helping out the business who is featured in this week's Ike Kupuna segment.
Whoops, sorry about that. Hopefully he grows something besides green onions.
He absolutely does. Uncle Earl's family has been farming in Waimea since the eve of World War II. In anticipation of needing fresh farm goods during the war, ranch land was converted into farmland. Here's Chef Ipi Aiona from our series Eating Our Roots, talking story with Uncle Earl Yamamoto.
I was brought up on a farm. I enjoy the outdoor life, fishing, hunting, and actually being outdoors. A lot of the farms are transitioning into indoor, like greenhouses, sterile environments. But to me, this was how it was done in the old days, right? That's what your vision of a farmer is, you know, in the elements. The wind, the Waimea wind and rain. And you have to contend with, you know, slogging in the mud. It's hard work, but it's rewarding, especially if your crop comes out, you know, really well. This is the dry side. Pukapu is the wet side. So World War II happened, and they wanted the Navy and the Army needed vegetables, fresh vegetables. So Parker Ranch actually leased out the lands for free. Oh, okay. They just said to all of the people who wanted to farm to look at what lots that you folks think you can farm and open it up. And that's how my father actually, in 1941, 42, that's when he started Parker Ranch, open to farmers. And that's how farming actually started in this area, I think, is from Parker Ranch.
Okay.
So, you know, the farmers have a lot of aloha for Parker Ranch. Yeah. I bought my farm in 74, and I met my wife in 76.
Okay.
And got married, and healthcare wasn't so good in Waimea at that time. So I moved down to Oahu, where she's from. I worked at the two hospitals, Kokini and Queens. And 8 years later, we moved. I had my son there, and I had to put his bike in my pickup truck and take him to a park, because we lived in a condo, and you know, it was dangerous riding around the streets. So I told my wife, "Well, what do you think? Should we move back to the Big Island?" And she said, "Yeah, I think it's safer over there." Before I moved to Oahu, our big crop was Chinese cabbage at that time, because we was exporting to the mainland.
Oh.
Yeah, to California. It went far off as New York, British Columbia. So we were harvesting about maybe 1,000 cases a week to send out to the mainland.
Okay.
Normally the kimchi factories.
Oh, got it.
You know,
Okay.
Kohala kimchi and all of the hams. That was pretty much the biggest market for us as far as vegetables go. So we grew a lot of Chinese cabbage and head cabbage. And to alternate the crops, because they use the same type of minor elements, if you grow the same crop over and over again, eventually, you know, they're going to have diseases and all that. So we intercropped it with lettuce.
Oh, okay.
So that's how we got into the lettuce.
How often you rotate is it every cycle?
Every planting cycle, you know, you plant, you know, like the cabbages, or and then you come in with lettuce after the cabbages, and then cycle back again to broccoli. Or we've always had green onions. It's an heirloom from my grandmother days. I think all of families used to have that. Parties used to have this placed with lye salt, And the beginning of the meal, they used to dip it in the salt and eat the raw onions. So normally, of course, when we started farming, green onions is tedious, right? They're small, they're light, so normally farmers don't grow the crop. They grow it in their home garden for their own use, but they don't plant it commercially. Well, when I retired from the family farm, I said, I want to, at least, I enjoy seeing things grow and planting them. So I didn't want to give that up. And I was thinking, what am I going to plant? Have and grow something that I can grow in a small area. I can keep the family, the green onions going. So I said, I'll try and see if I can plant green onions, because I don't think there's too many farmers that's going to plant that and try to make a go of it. And something that I could do by myself. I didn't have to hire anybody, So I took the plants and I replicated, made more seeds, and it's been about maybe 8 years since I retired, and I'm trying to keep it small because food safety issues. There's things that if you make you grows over 25,000, then you have to fall into this slot where you're gonna have to have a bathroom facility, wash stations. So I kept it. I'm trying to keep it small, and although, yeah, it's been challenging.
What's the name of that variety that you're talking?
It's akakai. Yes, it's been here from my grandmother's time. So that's the 1940s, 1945, around there. In the 40s, my grandmother was very innovative in that time. She came from Japan, but you normally take the bulbs off of. They don't have this type of variety does not have any seeds, so you have to have the plant. After they get matured, you take the bulbs, dry it, and you replant that, and they replicate. So I pull them first, and I cut the bottom of the root off. I leave the bulbs though.
Okay.
So a lot of my friends that I give onions to, later on I say, you want some green onions? Oh, no, Uncle, I took them home and I got some planted in my, so when I need, I just cut the top off, But if you just cut the top off, it gets smaller and smaller. Yes. Each time it grows back, the diameter gets smaller. But I grow it just for the seed crop.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So that's why. So that's how you keep it from not getting smaller. And smaller.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's in the past. That's how we've been doing it too. In a small plot, family plot, we keep the seeds going like that. Yeah. My grandma used to use it in almost everything. Poke. She used to make a dish with chicken and long rice. Long rice. They threw that on the long rice. Saimin. Fried noodles, everything almost everything that.
So is it the one that you'll see in like Chinese cooking, when you have like right at the end they throw the big pieces of green?
Oh yeah. That at the end that's basically what. And normally vegetables, they cycle out about 2.5 months. You have a crop that from seed or from seedling you harvest. Some as early as 45 days. So when you plant something, it's like raising a family, right? You got to nurture it. You put it in the ground. You got to feed it. You got to give it water. You got to take off all the competition, the weeds, and you might have something that comes out. And on top of that, you might have a really superb crop. And sometimes it's not that good, but then the taste is what the taste there. It might not look that nice, but we eat all our own, what we grow. So that's where it's kind of challenging. Yeah, the family farm is kind of starting to, we're starting to lose the family farms, I would say. A lot of things, but I would say there's a cycle to everything. And farming, I think farming, there's a cycle to it. It might come back to the smaller farms because right now, freight cost is so high. When you send out, that's why I think a lot of the local farmers here, they've cut back a lot of their shipments to Oahu, which the population base is there.
Yeah.
But it's cost prohibitive for the freight costs with young brothers. So we try as much as possible to market most of our produce on this island.
Mahalo piha Uncle Earl Yamamoto and his family for sharing their story.
Colby, we want to thank you, Chef Ippy, and the crew at the Emmy-winning Eating Our Roots for capturing Uncle Earl's ike. And I promise not to replant one of his green onions in my garden. Support for the Ike Kupuna and Mo'olelo portions of the Hawai'i Radio Hour comes from Kate Bell and Tom Blackburn of Deviants from the Norm.
Without deviation from the norm, progress is not possible. The Hawai'i Radio Hour, and more importantly, the Hawai'i Storytellers Fellowship, is supported by Kamehameha Schools.
Kamehameha Schools has provided funding for the Hawai'i Storytellers Fellowship, a program that helps train, coach, and nurture Hawaii's next generation of trusted storytellers.
To learn more about Kamehameha Schools, please visit ksbe.edu.
We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Hawai'i Radio Hour. We are grateful that you're taking time to listen to us.
If you're on the road right now, we appreciate you listening, especially if you're on that upper road cruising home after a trip to Costco. We've got a little music that we think will make your drive a little smoother.
Sean Parks was one of the featured performers at last year's Ukulele and Slack Key Guitar Festival. He really knows how to enjoy himself up on stage. The song we're featuring today was Ahana Ho. He was supposed to have led into the intermission, but the audience got him to keep on playing.
Here on stage at Kahilu for the 22nd annual Ukulele and Slack Key Guitar Festival is Sean Parks.
I think with that, we're supposed to take intermission. Okay, I'll do one more. I'll do a song called let's see. I'll do a song composed by the late Uncle Leonard Kwan. A Kihu Alu classic, a song almost everybody who plays slacky learns this song. But I'll do the rendition that was composed by my uncle. Of course, the great Uncle Ed Kaupana. A song called Opihi Moi Moi. pihi moi moi. Mahalo, you folks. Mahalo, mahalo.
We want a mahalo, Sean. Wait. He isn't ready to leave the stage.
Oh, so far nobody kicking me off the stage, so. I'll do one more song.
Wait, I guess Sean's going to play us another. Hana-ho!
I think many of you know this next song. Song made very popular by Uncle Led Kaupana. Song that he learned from his Uncle Fred Punaho. Song teaching him how the Hawaiians used to mix poi back in the day. Song called the Manaloa Slaki. Also dedicate this song to Uncle Sunny Lee. The Manaloa Slaki. Mahalo, mahalo. Mahalo once again. Mahalo, mahalo.
Since it was a food-related song, we just couldn't resist listening. It is so much fun to watch Sean play. On that last song, he was even using his forearms to play. We hope he'll be back for this year's festival in November. And if you'd like to watch Sean, head over to kahilu.tv. The Hawai'i Radio Hour is supported by the Abigail Kawananakoa Foundation.
The Abigail Kawananakoa Foundation is dedicated to preserving traditional Hawaiian culture while empowering Hawaiian people.
The foundation is the residual beneficiary of the Princess's Trust and is her lasting legacy and her ultimate gift to her people.
To learn more about the Abigail Kawananakoa Foundation, please visit kawananakoafoundation.org.
Be sure to follow us on social media at the Hawai'i Radio Hour. Look for us on Instagram and YouTube.
There you can find videos of Chelsey Dickson telling her mo'olelo about her voyage to Mokuvanavana.
And if you'd like to re-listen to the show, you can find us by searching for the Hawai'i Radio Hour on Spotify and other broadcast outlets. Mahalo for listening. We want to mahalo everyone who made this show possible. Chelsey Dickson, Uncle Earl Yamamoto, and Sean Parks for getting in front of the microphone. And behind the scenes, we want to mahalo the team at Kahilu. There are plenty great events on the calendar this summer at Kahilu, and you can find them at kahilu.org.
A very special mahalo to our Hawaii Storytellers Fellows, Jillian Santiago, Mahealani DuPont, and Tati Dunauer, for their help producing this week's shows.
And if you're away from the islands but don't want to miss out on the performances at Kahilu, you can find shows on kahilu.tv. You can stream Sean Parks and the rest of the Ho'olaulea at the Ukulele Slack Key Guitar Festival. Go to kahilu.tv.
We're also interested in hearing from you. You can send us an email or voice memo to aloha@hawaiiradiohour.com. Again, that's aloha@hawaiiradiohour.com.
Here on the show, we always say a ho'olohe I ko kako moku. Listen to our island home. So as we leave you, we're going to listen to something a little special. Before she began telling her story, Chelsey Dickson led the audience in a special oli from Nā Kalai Va'a and the crew of Makali'i.
E ho'olohe I ko kako moku.
A hui ho and aloha.